What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 5 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. Tune in every Monday as we cover a subject and interview industry leaders on how you can grow your hardscaping business, from new installation methods, techniques, tools, marketing, financials, and so much more. On today's episode, we're joined by Jeff Cunningham. He's the Ontario sales manager for Alliance, and we talked to him about Gator Base. We talked about how you install Gator Base, how you can sell your customers on Gator Base, and why you should be using Gator Base on your next project. This is a great interview with Jeff, and it covers a lot of in-depth information. We have used Gator Base in the past in our business and continue to use it. It is an amazing product that will help speed up your installation time and create efficiency in your installs, and it will really help your business, especially if you're experiencing a labor shortage in your market. So let's jump right into it. We are joined today on the show by Jeff Cunningham. He's the Ontario sales manager for Alliance, who, among other things, are the creators of the Gator Base, a product that will save you labor when preparing your bases. Jeff, thank you for joining us here today.
All right, Michael. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, and I just want to get right into the Gator Base here. Can you give us a little bit of a background on the product and how it came to be?
Sure. So Gator Base has been around in the market for almost 6 years. So we had it kind of tested and in the market and in the hands of some people, and we did installs just to see how it was going to perform 6 years ago in Montreal. So it's a Canadian product that's been in the field, in the hands of hardscape contractors for 5 years. So we have 5 full Canadian and North American winters under our belt at this point. So we're into our 6th season now, and it came to be from civil engineering industry. So we, long story short, there's for those that are familiar with Gator Base, I think a lot of people look at it and they say, well, this piece of foam. That's what I hear a lot. That's what we hear a lot. And it kind of is foam, but it's a little different. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But it came out of the civil engineering world, where they've been using foam panels for construction, specifically in road and bridge construction projects. Lots of it over in Europe and quite a bit of it in North America. You're probably familiar with polystyrene panels, those giant EPS foam blocks. Have you seen those before? They're big white foam blocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you don't always see them unless you get lucky and you pass a road project or a brand new bridge going in. You'll see these giant foam blocks, and they've been used for decades and decades in the civil engineering world, where you can take these giant foam blocks and build up mass. They're lightweight, they're easy to use. You can manipulate grades very easily because you're building up mass, and then you finish your top grading and you build a road, essentially. And what you get from that is a lot less excavation and land moving equipment and labor. Jobs get done faster. They protect from frost and thaw cycles, so you get a more stability in a project over a long period of time. So anyway, a bit of a long story, but that's where it kind of came from, or the concept of Gator Base came from the civil engineering world, and those giant EPS foam panels. Now, they're a little different, but that's where the idea came from.
So we know where the idea came from. We know what it's made of. But what makes this a viable product to be able to support a patio or a walkway?
So it is. So those foam panels are EPS, so expanded polystyrene. Okay, and you can also find expanded polystyrene in various types and densities at your local building center for, say, even home renovation projects. You know, you buy these foam panels even for your basement, and they are great insulators, but they don't have any density or very low density, and they certainly don't have very much strength. We all know you can grab those panels and you snap them quite easily, but they're great insulators. What makes Gator Base different than those is Gator Base is made of expanded high-density polypropylene. So pretty fancy wording, but essentially it's very, very strong foam, if you want to put it in layman's terms. So it is a foam. It's an amazing insulator. It has 3 characteristics, and one of them's insulation. The other 2 is its density. So it has a density rating of 8 psi. So, and that's in a dynamic load. So that's very important. When I say 8 psi to someone as a contractor, let's say, they know 8 psi is quite strong, but that is not in a static load. That's in a dynamic load. So dynamic being in movement. So if you're a person walking over a patio, if you're something rolling over a patio, or let's say patio for an instance, that's where it's being used. You're in dynamic movement. You're moving. So if it's a static load, like a retaining wall or patio furniture or barbecue island, that's dynamic loading. That's much different than static. So 8 psi in a static loading. And for all the hardscape contractors that listen to this, and you, Michael, you understand there's 144 square inches per square foot. So what really makes that 8 psi number pop is for density. This is where we start to really get a concept for how strong Gator Base is. If you take 8 times 144, you get 1,152 pounds per square foot of supporting capacity in a dynamic load. That's a lot of weight this product can support. So going back to its 3 characteristics, it's insulation, density, number 2, and the third one is distribution or displacement. So kind of the analogy would be like putting on snowshoes, or, we're, as humans, we're tall. We don't distribute our weight very well. I mean, we have feet that are proportionately sized to our bodies, we hope, and we are able to stay straight up and not fall through things. But if you're walking on snow, let's say, you put in snowshoes, you stay afloat. All homes are built on footings that are usually 2.5, 3 times the size or width of their foundation walls. So those are, trying to give you guys a concept to displacement of weight. So when you look at Gator Base, you have all these 2x3 panels that are interlocked. They have a physical interlocking connection. And once they're all interconnected, you have essentially a subfloor that's supporting everything on top of it. So insulation, density, and displacement or distribution of weight are its 3 characteristics on how it performs. And I think once you start to understand the engineering of it, that's when you get your head wrapped around how the product performs. And then after that, you have to figure out, how is this a viable option as far as a, production standpoint from a business and cost perspective. And that's where we got to start, peeling in the numbers and stuff like that. But we'll get into that.
How easy is it to install Gator Base? I know there's certain benefits to using Gator Base, like being able to slide the pavers, being able to, throw them down and stepping on your screed layer. Like, how easy is it to install using Gator Base?
So let's play out a scenario if that works as well, so we can give a visual concept to those who are listening to this. So let's use tight access as our scenario here. It can be for anything. Gator Base can be used for a big, wide open, easy access. You could drive any piece of equipment in there, project, in and around pools and stuff like that. It's great, but let's use tight access because that's really where it's a home run for a lot of contractors that are struggling to get equipment. And now even equipment manufacturers are getting specialized. The MT85 seems to be a very popular machine. You got retractable excavators that get in down into 29, 30 inches in width when you can bring the tracks in to squeeze through gates. It's very challenging to get into a lot of backyards. And it seems to be anything that was built in North America. I mean, I hope I'm not too naive to think this, but I drive around Ontario all over the place, and it seems like everything in the last 10 years is tight access. Like they put a lot of homes on a small square footage of land now, and to get to those backyards is very challenging. So Gator Base is great for tight access, and this is why. Any landscape project needs to be excavated, okay? So we all know that. That's how much excavation do you need to do for a Gator Base project versus a traditional project. So let's go to ICPI here for a sec. Based on ICPI, the Interlocking Concrete Pavement Institute, they say that the standard building practices should have a minimum of a 6-inch base aggregate base material for a pedestrian walkway or patio. Okay, and so do some contractors do more? Sure. Is there different soil types throughout that require different types of amendments and different depths of base materials? Yes, absolutely. So we kind of just follow along that 6-inch base material guideline from ICPI, and we say that Gator Base replaces 6 inches of base material. So that's base material. So if you're doing base material plus pavers, and let's say anything that's, a 60 mil paver, right, that's 2 inches and 3/8, you're around a 10-inch excavation, 9 to 10-inch excavation plus minus. So that's on standard. On Gator Base, you're a 4-inch excavation. Right away, you've cut down your excavation by over half. In some cases, like some cases, it's about 2/3. So I see it when I talk to contractors when you say, hey, you only have to dig down about 4 inches to prep for the basement and for Gator Base to go in versus your 10, maybe even plus. I can see it in their eyes. It's almost like their pupils dilate because mathematically in their head, they may not be admitting it, but they know right away when I say that their production rates are going to be up, that their labor is going to be down. They're going to get the job done faster, right? So so I'll walk you through the construction at this point. So you've excavated 4 inches. You've removed your organic materials. If you're really, really good at clearing this off, and you might have a smooth articulating bucket and you just peeled off straight off of the ground, like with a mini excavator, or even an MT85, and you're not really disturbing your excavation, you don't really have to compact after that. It's always good practice to throw another compactor, throw a compactor on there to compact your sub base, your natives. But some guys are even going in with sod cutters, and they're just sod cutting out, their footprint and cold shoveling that off, putting in wheelbarrows and getting it out of there. Yesterday, I was direct messaged by a contractor friend of mine out in Whitby. He was actually doing a Gator Base job through a house. So it's on our Instagram page. You would at Alliance Gator Ontario. These guys were walking right through the front door, right through the house and into the backyard. There was no access. So very challenging, right? So you get rid of your native, and you've compacted at this point. So those two practices are the same, whether it be a Gator Base job or a traditional job. You just save yourself over half of the excavation, almost 2/3 of the excavation, and all that basement or all the excavated material to leave, which is great. So your labor time is down, your disposal fees are down. And then you put down a non-woven geotextile. You can use a woven if you like. It's overkill, to be honest. It's wovens are stronger than non-wovens, but a non-woven would suffice. So we all know non-woven is more like a felt type geotextile. It's strong enough to be a separator for a pedestrian walkway or patio for the aggregate base materials and the sub base materials. So that's what you would do. So you put down a non-woven geotextile, and of course you're going to overlap those seams if you have seams, just like you would shingle a roof. So you're going to start rolling out at the bottom of your pitch or slope and work your way back up so that water always sheets off the top of each row of geotextile down off the project beneath if water were to get through all the profiles and down to the geotextile. After that, you have two choices. You can either screed out with concrete sand, which is, that's kind of where we started with ICPI recommends concrete sand or screed sand, which is a bit more coarse. It's a C33 sand. It's not a fine like a masonry sand. It's nothing like that. It's very coarse. It's kind of got more stony type aggregates in it. And it's easy to screed with. The only problem is it settles a little bit. So on a Gator Base project, you're only required to put down a 3/4 of an inch of a screed material. You could do a little bit more if you like, knock your socks off, but the more that you put in, the more you're going to have to consolidate or compact that sand. what contractors don't like about using sand with a Gator Base project is that you have to consolidate. So imagine this. Well, we're talking about efficiencies here, right? And Michael, you've installed, I've installed, I was a previous hardscape contractor, and everyone who we talked to using concrete sand, when you get that screed layer perfect, no one wants to go back and have to compact that sand again. So, it's challenging in that respect that you've got your screed bars in place and you would have to run a compactor between your screed bars, and you'd have to add a little more concrete sand, screed back out, and work your way off the project. So you're kind of like taking a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing with the concrete sand. It's totally fine. That's where we started with. But the Ontario market, especially because that's where HPB exists. I don't believe it exists anywhere outside of Ontario. It's a spec Dufferin aggregate. It's a number 8 stone, so an ASTM number 8 stone. And anyone I'm speaking with or who's listening that knows about HPB knows exactly what it is. It's essentially a 1/4 inch clear chip. So we're hearing a lot of the industry going towards an open graded aggregate now, right? And we hear that. That's a very popular term out there. So if you can find a ASTM number 8 stone, which is a 1/4 inch clear chip in your market, and it has to be angular. It's very important. Angular. That's what an HPB is, angular. So they don't roll around like if they were a round spherical type aggregate. That's not good. But if you have an angular ASTM number 8 stone, which I think is almost everywhere now, that is the perfect screed layer for Gator Base projects. You screed out 3/4 of an inch of that, and after that, you don't have to consolidate it because HPB is, what is it, Michael? Self-consolidated at about 98% self-consolidated after it's laid down. So that's it. You just pull your screed bars out, and then you're ready to start laying Gator Base. So you start putting down your Gator Base panels. This is difficult for me to explain over the podcast. It's very visual, this part, but if you had a piece of Gator Base in your hand and you're looking at it, you're going to see that we've imprinted 2 faces of our logo on each panel. So there's a Gator face in one orientation on one side, and if you flip it over, it's in a different orientation on the other side. There is no upside or downside to Gator Base. It can go in any orientation, but those faces that are in different orientations on opposite sides are important, and it's an important visual cue, because once you start laying the Gator Base, you want, just from a production standpoint, and so you're not guessing which way the Gator Base panel should go in place, you always want the faces to be in the same orientation as you're laying them out throughout the project. Now, again, not being able to physically do this and see it, but talk about it. If you look at the Gator Base, you're going to see interlocking edges. When you start your first piece of Gator Base, you're going to start it, let's say, up against the house, and you, in the path or the direction you're headed, you always want the interlocking edges to be facing up in the direction that you're headed. So it's very important. If they're going to rewind and re-listen to this podcast over and over and over again, which I hope they do. And it's great you're doing this, Michael, for the industry, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think we need a lot more education out there. This industry is, it's a funny one at times. I love this industry. I feel like it needs to be dialed in a bit, and there's a lot of education out there, and there's a lot of people that are great at this. And I think there's a lot of contractors that are desperate for information and really want to do things right, but they don't know where to go. So I hope this becomes one of the many resources that people can find out there. So have that interlocking edging up, then that allows the next panel to go right down, and you can interlock right on top of that piece of Gator Base, as opposed to if you had not left the interlocking edging up in the direction you're headed. You're going to be consistently having to lift up that previous panel and slide a piece of Gator Base underneath to lock the interlocking edge down. If I've described that well, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So it's a tongue and groove system. The Gator base logo on the Gator Base is either portrait or landscape or vertical or horizontal, and it needs to follow the same orientation throughout your project. And the tongue and groove system, the tongue is always up, and so that the groove can come down onto it.
Perfect. You would start with a full row of Gator Base. The next row down, you're going to cut one in half so you have staggered joints. So that half piece that goes down, you start laying out full pieces after. And then when you get to the end of the project on the opposite side, that half piece that you have left over goes to the opposite side. Okay? And then the next row down, the third row would be full panels again. So you're doing a 50% staggered joint, like a brick pattern on the panels. It's not necessary. Sometimes the orientation of a project is going to make you change direction. You might have a walkway that comes into it. You might have to, change direction, and that's fine. The Gator Base panels don't have to be 50% offset like that. It's just going to definitely make for a stronger project. As long as you have some type of stagger, I think it's of benefit. So it's not a must, but it's definitely best practices when building Gator Base. So that's the construction. So typically, let's say a 60 mil paver, which is 2 3/8. That's about a 4-inch excavation. Put down your geotextile, non-woven, 3/4 of an inch of HPB or ASTM number 8 stone, which is a 1/4 inch clear chip. And you got that screed out, and you put down your Gator Base panels. I was just talking about how to install them. And now you're ready to start laying pavers if those pavers are very true and consistent in thickness. There's different tolerances by different manufacturers out there. We all know who makes very tight tolerance pavers, and those really tight tolerance pavers like that are within 3 mil. I mean, 3 mil is nothing, especially if you have a built-in chamfer. Okay, so those types of pavers can go right on top of Gator Base. If you're working with products that are not as tight on tolerances, and they might be products that have they could be slabs. Let's say slabs at times are very challenging to keep very true and consistent in thickness on a manufacturing standpoint, and you need to work out some of those tolerances. In a traditional base, it's a non-issue. You got a sand setting bed, and that's a non-issue. But on a Gator Base project, you should probably put down another screed layer of sand, not HPV at this point, but sand on top of Gator Base to work out those tolerances. We have that in our technical data sheet available for download under Gator Base at alliancegator.com. You just go to our website. It's very user-friendly to navigate, and you can pull the TDS sheet, the technical data sheet, and it's going to tell you everything I did or I am explaining today, but it'll also show you the screed layer if you need to incorporate it into the Gator Base project. So that would also be used for natural stone. So we have many natural stone jobs on top of Gator Base as well, and but they would require a sand setting bed on top of Gator Base. But if I'd say probably 90% or more of our projects are dry cast with tight tolerances, and they're right on top of Gator Base. The efficiencies are just wild at this point, because earlier on you said sliding pavers into place. I loved that you said that, because contractors are not, that is totally foreign. Nobody's ever slid pavers into place, right? You just can't do it on an aggregate base. So you can walk wherever you want on the Gator Base. You have a subfloor, right? You're not, and you also said earlier, Michael, you also said grade stepping, right? Or stepping on your screed layer. So there's none of that either on Gator Base. You can walk all over this substrate. You're not disturbing anything. And you can stage pavers wherever you want, and then you can start sliding pavers into place.
Getting into a little bit more, where you can install it. You can't install it on driveways. Retaining walls, no. But I do understand you can do smaller gravity wall installs.
Okay, yeah. So for gravity walls, we'll have to come up with something that specifically says what weight tolerances Gator Base can support, but we're not there at that point yet. But we know that if you're well below that weight, that support that we talked about earlier, 8 pounds per square inch, which is over 1,000 pounds per square foot, then you're going to be fine. So we have lots of contractors that have installed gravity walls, small fire features, and so forth of, like, let's say 18 inches, double-sided seating walls. So yeah, they're building some interest into Gator Base projects without having to put in a concrete footer or even a traditional base. Small steps can go in as well. So say you're going to put in some natural stone steps or small steps, you get 2 or 3 rise step going into the back of the house, right off to the patio. That would be fine as well. So yeah, no problem with what you had said there, Michael.
So what about steps? Has anyone used it on steps before? Like a front entrance step or a back patio step? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Even natural stone steps. Remember, we're just going to keep the weight of those steps. They're heavy, obviously, but as long as you're well below that weight threshold, then, like, remember, 8 pounds per square inch is in a dynamic loading. So just keep that in mind. But if you're well below that, we don't have the numbers yet to say exactly what that's going to be, but it's got to be, I know it sounds kind of wish-washy, but as long as it's well below that, you're going to be fine. But we just got to do a bit of some dynamic loading testing to figure out what that would be. And I would imagine we're going to have a cut sheet for our technical data sheet on supporting, step encasements and fire features, small retaining walls. Let's say a small retaining wall holding back a small little garden bed or something. Yeah, no problem with that. Now, I wouldn't say Gator Base limits you from being able to put in a wall, even a big wall, or even putting in a hot tub and stuff like that. Those areas would have to be cut out and put in a traditional base or put in a structurally sound concrete poured in place slab. And we have tons of those. We have great examples of projects. There's an amazing project done by Hardscape Ottawa, and there's many others out there as well, but this is one that comes to mind. We showed it and talked to everybody through the construction of this project at our Gator U course that we hosted last year in Ontario. And Matt and his team, they have a giant pergola in place, so they put in their concrete footers and had those set at excavation points, and then they put in another concrete footer along with a deeper aggregate base underneath for a giant planter bed. Like, it was huge. It needed a structurally sound concrete slab in place, but everything throughout became Gator Base after the fact, which was really neat. So other things too that we kind of run into with these tight access areas that we, like tight access, let's say, they're always trying to mimic and move water quickly off these sites because there's not a lot of space or square footage or a footprint to their property, right? So usually have a drainage swale at the back, and that drainage swale comes into play quite often when you're building a standard size patio of, say 250, 300, up to 400 square feet. It seems to be kind of the niche for these tight access areas, and you can get in that drainage swale really quickly. So how are you going to mimic that or get it around that grade? So what contractors will do is they'll put in a small retaining wall with a traditional base underneath, and put in some biaxial geogrid and tie it back into their natives, and then just fill that void up with an open graded aggregate and like 57 stone and or 3/4 clear, and bring that back to native grade. And then after that, you can put down like a geotextile again, put down your screed layer throughout the whole thing, and then put down Gator Base. So if you have a drainage swale that comes into a Gator Base project, just build up that area, just that small area, back to where you're going to zero out on your Gator Base project, right? Do you follow me on this one? Yeah. And then just go Gator Base throughout. So you'll have a small retainer at the back. It's a nice feature, but you didn't have to go traditional base throughout.
Gotcha. Now, there's a couple other things, including the edge restraint and the gator screws that you just screw in instead of using edge nails. Are you still able to use the edge nails, the 10-inch long spikes with the traditional edge restraint, or even I've seen guys use mixed concrete and create an edge restraint using the concrete, just tapering it up to the interlock. Can you still use those methods, or do you definitely recommend go with the Gator screws and the edge restraint?
Well, you've left it open for me to just say use the Gator edge restraint and screws. I mean, I'm going to sound salesy, like you're going to, hey, you just got to buy my stuff, right? But I mean, truthfully, we've done the test. We're a huge testing company. Like we're all previous hardscape contractors. Really, anyone who's worked here at Alliance, we've all come up through this industry. We're dedicated to it, and we're big on testing before we bring something to the market. And now when we brought Gator Base to the market, we had our own edge restraint, the Gator edge restraint already. And we had our own spikes. So we still sell them. But what we found was with spikes, with a Gator Base project, is although they work to hold the edge restraint in laterally, the spikes don't stay in place vertically. They get pushed up from frost and thaw cycles. I don't have anybody calling back to report a failure, but what they do, what we know about and they do talk about is that the edge restraint really isn't that strongly fastened in place like it would be if those nails had gone into a densely compacted aggregate base. Because let's get away from Gator Base here even for a second. There's a huge shift towards open graded base construction now, right? Or just even a traditional aspect. So there's a lot of contractors that are, if we're just talking efficiencies, right? We're just talking building faster and building better. Open graded is even better. And you can dump open graded in and not have to really consolidate it. You can work with open graded longer into frost periods because they don't bind together with a little bit of moisture and become frozen chunks of aggregate. They still, you can still work with them. So you cannot put a spike. And if you are, you're doing yourself a disservice. You cannot put a spike through an edge restraint into open graded and expect it to hold up and last. It's going to migrate very quickly. There's nothing for that spike to hold on to. So if you follow me on that one, some people probably just took a gulp and they're looking back on their projects and they're like, oh, doing that a lot, but you can't. The spike needs to be held into something firm and in place, and it needs to bite in and hold, but it's not going to do that on an open graded. It's not going to do that on a Gator Base. So for Gator Base, now I don't want to go off on a tangent, but with open graded, there are other options that are out there to fasten edge restraints. I mean, we don't have anything in our arsenal as of yet, but there are other options that are out there on the market. So I would highly recommend people explore those options and use them for permeable builds and open graded hybrid type construction practices. Now for Gator Base, we developed the screw. So the Gator screw we came out with 3 years ago, and it's a no-brainer for contractors after they see how this thing fastens our edge restraint to Gator Base. And really, it's simple. You can push them through with your thumb essentially, or your hand, through your edge restraint through the Gator Base. If you want to just tap them down with a hammer, so be it. And then you mechanically open them up with a drill. And the drill, you just get a number 2 Phillips head, very common bit, and you just screw the screw until your clutch chuck on the drive, like you know how on an impact driver it'll make that sound, at the end when you hit the clutch. At that point you stop. So what will happen is you mechanically open up a fastener underneath of the Gator Base. So when you activate the screw, a fastener starts opening up underneath the Gator Base, and it physically fastens edge restraint right to Gator Base. So strong that they become like essentially married together. It's unreal. Like you would put them in traditionally just like you would with spikes. Every second hole on a straight run, and maybe on some curves you go every other hole. And they don't really cost that much more than spikes, and they go in with a drill, and guys feel really good about it after. I mean, it's a pretty cool advancement in our system over the last few years. So it's become pretty much standard practice. The Gator edge restraint with the Gator screws on Gator Base is all part of the system for sure.
For sure. Awesome. And I just want to get into a little, sales mode with, in terms of contractors selling it to their customers. I've used Gator Base before. I love it. But I have gotten pushback from customers in the back. Those customers that love to Google things before they get somebody out telling them how it should be done. And they've never heard of, Gator Base or these new products on the market, and they want to go traditional because that's what they've found online. When you bring up Gator Base as a contractor, do you have any recommendations for contractors in terms of selling this to their customer? Obviously, it's a major investment for a customer to build a big patio in their backyard. How can contractors kind of sell this to their customers?
It's a great question, and it has always been our challenge. When we first started out, going back 5-6 years ago, it was not easy. Now it's a lot easier. So there's not too many people now that haven't heard of it, right? I mean, I think that's why we're having an interview today. We probably wouldn't be having this interview even last year or a couple of years ago, right? It's safe to say the word's out on Gator Base, and we've got lots of resources. I would say, if I was a contractor, there's lots of angles you can go at this. So we've got marketing we can support you with. It's going to show you what Gator Base is and stuff like that. But I mean, I was a previous contractor. I don't like to just aid on marketing as a crutch. I want to speak confidently about the product, and I want to know what I'm talking about so my homeowner sees that confidence, right? I mean, if they don't believe in what you're saying, or you just throw a pamphlet across the table at them for them to read and become educated on because you don't know what you're talking about, I don't think you're going to do yourself a lot of closing of Gator Base jobs. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So let's say this is your approach. And I would highly recommend that people attend Gator U. Again, we're going to do it again this year. We'll have a few stops across Ontario. We'll always do a couple in Toronto. We'll go out to the West End somewhere, and we'll go probably out to the Kingston, Ottawa region as well for the East. So what we do is we do a whole bunch of training on this, on how to sell a Gator Base job. So in a nutshell, if you are a contractor wanting to sell a Gator Base job to a homeowner, you need to already say to them, because probably there's a pretty good shot that you're going to be up against competition, right? You're going to have other contractors bidding for the same job, and they might not be using Gator Base. They might be using traditional base. So I would just call it out straight out. I would just say, listen, I've used Gator Base. I love it. I trust it. This is what it is. And it replaces all the traditional base. And Alliance stands behind these installation practices as long as I bill it to their spec, which I do. So they need to then at that point have some type of reassurance. So you could just say, deliver it any way you want, but say, listen, this option I'm presenting is just as good as a traditional base. It just might be that the contractor that is quoting you a traditional base isn't familiar with Gator Base, or they may not have installed it. I've installed a lot. Maybe they'll have a portfolio of projects they can talk about. So on and so forth. There's lots of angles that way. But if they've invited you into this is another thing. If they've invited you into their house to sit down at their dinner table to have a consultation and go through all this, there's already a level of trust that's been established between you and your homeowner or your client, right? So you just got to realize that you already have a great opportunity at closing this job. And then you start saying things like new technology. So I don't think any of us in this consumer market day and age are unfamiliar with new technologies and having nice technology in our homes and in our life that helps us, whether it be in like conveniences or business, like energy efficient appliances, could be anything, right? And homeowners, it's not foreign to them. They are very aware of all these new technologies. So all you really just have to say, listen, this Gator Base is a newer technology for the industry. It's meeting building practices. It's backed and supported by leading paver manufacturers, and we can provide you a list of who they are. But in Ontario, it's TechoBlock and Unilock. They're backing Gator Base. We've made huge strides with ICPI. I bet you one day soon we get certification through them. Now, they won't say you can use Gator Base, but they'll say something like, for pedestrian walkways, you can use a expanded polypropylene mat system or something of that tune. So there's lots of things I hope people are picking up on. I know I'm rambling, but there's lots of things here. You talk about technology, that you've used it before, that it will go up and perform against traditional base. And then when you say something like this, you always got to hit those pain receptors, right? With whoever you're talking to in the sales aspect. If you tell them, I'm going to get this job done in probably half the amount of time, that's where we really know the numbers. When you start knowing your numbers on Gator Base, you can do a project in half the amount of time as you would in a traditional base. So they're going to have their patio open sooner, right? So they're going to enjoy it quicker. You're not going to have as much disturbance around for your neighbors. That's always something everybody gets all tight about, all that dust and loud noise and equipment and all this stuff. Neighbors, tight access especially. So, there's going to be a lot less disturbance to your property. You're not going to have to. A lot of times, Michael, and you've done it, Gator-based jobs don't require any remediation after. So all that traffic back and forth on a traditional job down, the side of the house and into the backyard, all of that needs to be regraded and sodded, and maybe you went through an irrigation line or a shallow service or something like that along the way. Those are a lot of fixes that sometimes aren't accounted for, right? So, hey, gonna get this job done faster. You're gonna have this patio open so much sooner. It's gonna perform against traditional base. I know what I'm doing. I love this product. You can trust it because you trust me, and I trust Alliance, and Alliance backs it, and so do paver manufacturers. So there's lots to say. I know that was a big ramble, but there's lots to say. It's not just getting down on your hands and knees and say, please try it anymore. It's like, we're proven, and we've now done 4.5 million square feet of Gator Base, and literally, whether you believe me or not, we don't have a single claim against it. We have no failures on Gator Base projects over 4.5 million square feet over 5 years.
And that's incredible. And I think a big thing, like, from everything you've talked about this whole interview, and contractors educating themselves and presenting that to their clients. Obviously, you don't have to get into the technical aspects, but just being able to convey the benefits of Gator Base to your client will really help you throughout selling them on this new technology, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
No problem. It's been great. I love getting some education out there to the industry. This is great what you're doing, Michael. I wish you all the success with this stuff going forward, and I'll see you out there in the field. So looking forward to doing some more work with you guys. And I think, just last thing I'll say on Gator Base is, once you become familiar with it all and the concept of it, then once you start running your numbers as a business, this is something to internalize as a business owner, like overhead recovery costs and numbers and stuff like that. You're going to save some money. You're going to do the job faster. Your labor rates are going to be down. Your production rates are going to be up, and you're going to do more work. And that is a huge thing in this day and age where labor is hard to find. I don't know. You tell me what's it like these days, Michael, trying to find dependable, good labor.
Oh, it's far and few between, for sure.
So yeah, if you want to try to get things done and get ahead of the game, there's contractors that are doing it now, and there's some that are. We have one contractor in Ottawa who's on his 17th Gator Base job this year, and today is our last day of sales meetings company wide today in Philadelphia, and we're going to have a quick testimonial with this contractor. He's not going to be here, but we're talking on behalf of him. But just so you know, this guy, it's Raymond Interlock out of Ottawa. He this year, and you know what the spring was like, Michael? We had a really bad spring. It was really wet, and jobs were being held up. Like, you could not get on jobs probably until mid-May to the end of May.
Yep.
So I'd say a lot of guys were behind almost 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month, depending on what that first job was. I know a lot of pool jobs didn't get going really quick, and there was a lot of pool jobs that just got destroyed with that spring weather. And this guy, Raymond Interlock, is a month ahead of schedule right now. He's a month ahead of schedule. The investment on the Gator Base offsets the amount of labor he's saved. So although Gator Base is costly, he knows, he sees the numbers that he hasn't had to spend as much money on labor. So he's a month ahead of schedule. His labor rates are down. He gave everybody in the company a week off, paid vacation. Okay. And he took a vacation for him and his family already this year.
That's incredible.
We're in August.
Yeah.
This guy is now going into the fall, feeling pretty good about his season, not stressing in, late September, early October on how many more projects he's going to be able to crunch in once the bad weather starts coming back in again, and then having to figure out, has he got enough money to float him in the winter or not. He's feeling pretty at ease about things. That's a powerful testament to how he's applied Gator Base to his business. So I just wanted to say that part. Sorry.
No, definitely. And I know it's a very visual thing, installing Gator Base. So we're going to have links and some more visual things on our website based on Gator Base. But Jeff, where can the audience go to learn more about everything that Alliance has going on and to learn more about Gator Base?
Well, so yeah, alliancegator.com is our website. Again, it's user friendly. It's a great layout. You can get everything you need from there. We have videos and available for download, technical data sheets on all of our products. Gator Base, polymeric sand, geotextiles, all of our products are all there. But I think where our industry is, the landscape industry, is very much a visual industry, right? It's a show and tell industry. It's a portfolio type industry. And our industry seems to be very alive and well on Instagram. So we, the Alliance team, created our own Instagram page, Alliance Gator Ontario, just over a couple of years ago. And it's a great place. You can go find lots of stuff of what we're doing in the Ontario market. Our corporate page is just Alliance Gator, and they're doing a great job with that as well. So that's our Instagram page, is just Alliance Gator. Our Instagram Ontario page is Alliance Gator Ontario. And then we I'm running the Gator Base page myself, and it just says Gator Base, right? At Gator Base is our Instagram handle for Gator Base, and I'm just putting Gator Base content up on there. And it's funny. I mean, that page is actually growing faster than any of our pages. It's already got 800 followers. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, it's been up for 4 months. So just kind of putting a bunch of Gator Base content on there is going to be a great place to go. It's going to show you the system, a lot of visuals, great spot to go, potentially network with contractors as well that have used Gator Base. So if you see a contractor that's done a job and you're on Instagram, you could direct message them and ask them, their thoughts on things and network with other contractors. You don't have to hear it from a salesperson perspective. You can take it right from a contractor's perspective, which is great.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Visit howtohardscape.com for more information on this subject, and let us know what you want to learn about in future episodes by reaching out to us on our social channels. We're at howtohardscape everywhere, or email us directly, contact@howtohardscape.com. We'd love it if you would subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review. This really helps us get this traction and get this podcast out there and into other hardscapers' ears, and to get more and more guests on the show to share with you some amazing advice. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.